This little film of the Bristol Classic Bike Show at Shepton Mallet in 2010 is unashamedly about speed and about Vincents, portrayed by 4 classic speed machines: George Brown's Nero and Super Nero, and Brian Chapman's pair of mice. Sit back and enjoy. Well, the mice were well and truly trapped behind my car because I'd picked them up the day previously at Fleet Services, and they now meet up with Nero and Super Nero at Shepton Mallet. We borrowed these 2 wondrous machines from the National Motorcycle Museum, for which we will always be grateful for their trusting the club with their prize exhibits. And here they are being unloaded from the transport.
Plenty of time. Margie said 12 to me, and I just assumed I could have come here.
You press the button, bring the tail lift up. Yeah, it's easy getting it back on, by the way. It's worth getting up. Yeah, well, that's him. Yeah, if you shove that level with the front wheel, no, you can't do it that way, guys. What are you going to do? Around that way. No, you've got to bring it straight all up.
Straight there?
Yeah. No, so bring it up to the wheel.
All the way up.
Bring it up to the wheel.
All the way up.
I mean, you can do it all the way.
I see.
You can, that's it.
Yeah, we got it.
No, don't overlap, sorry, because it's going to come down with the tail lift. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, then somebody's going to get on the end and hold it.
Well, we're on the end. Yeah, we hang on to the back end.
Yeah, just watch the back till it's clear.
Yep. Oh, I see you let the tailgate.
Yeah, but hang on, I'm going to get down myself. It's not a very good system.
Okay. Down there. Straight through the door. Stand up. Right, stay here with the van. Yeah, can do. Right. Nero.
She's off there. Okay. Yeah.
We're on film here.
Now, I'm inside the room this side.
Sorry?
So when it comes forward, I might ask you to hold it. Okay. I'm alright for a bit.
I'm going to get this side.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I'll get it through.
Gets a bit heavy from
Now.
here.
Yeah. Hold it there now, I've got to get down there. So. No, Roger.
Yeah.
Leave that button for a bit. Come and hold the rake on the bottom. Stop the bike moving for a minute. Okay. Right, now we can let it go forward. Now you can get down if you want now. Yeah. Yeah. Bit complicated, isn't it? Keep your finger on the button. Lovely, lovely. Okie dokie. Straight in?
Yeah, same thing.
Okay.
We're just placing it low towards them. So I haven't got your benefit of your... I've got to get in this film.
there anything else to go in, Martin?
Yeah.
And there they are, safely inside with one of their many admirers. And we can now turn our attention to Mouse and Super Mouse as we take them out of my motorcar trailer. A job in itself, but at least they were a little bit lighter and easier to handle, as you will see.
So presumably we have to pull it out with
Somebody this side.
The first one off is Mighty Mouse, the 500 with the Vincent Comet engine, much modified and supercharged.
Hang on. All right.
And Bill looks after her. And there's the larger of the two, Super Mouse,
Top end shot.
which is fitted with the Vincent
There's Roger.
998cc twin engine.
He's got to be
And
lifted off.
G2, of course,
Tell me where to
is supercharged and was quicker, but not noticeably so, than Mighty Mouse.
exhaust pipes caught. Wheel straight, somebody, front wheel. Drop it. That's it. There we go.
straight back.
Well done. Straight back.
See here.
Do you know the stands for this one, Warr? Or where is it? Oh, there you are.
And there is the big twin, propped up temporarily in the stand area. And then we next see Jim Middleton's Vincent Egley, which is a genuine Egley, being wheeled in by Barry. And Jim will appear in the background in a moment. Here he is, watching his bike safely installed. That too is a splendid device. And in the foreground is John Rennick's very much one-off sidecar sprint outfit. And there are the two George Brown machines, Nero and Super Nero, again temporarily on the stand. And there we see the little 500 Mighty Mouse. Things are beginning to take shape, and Jim's there chatting to Jane and Claire, and gradually the various exhibits are pretty close to their final positions. And there's John Rennick making sure that his wonderful sidecar outfit is still in one piece after its travels. I first took photographs of John in, I think, 1961, when he won the British Sidecar Championship in his first season on the track. But that was a track device, not a sprint device like Epimetheus, which is his machine there. I think it was probably earlier than that I saw George Brown with Nero in Bristol at the Gorham Fair in about 1959. And then I saw him again in 1964, I think it was, on the Isle of Man at the Ramsey Sprint. And this is Bill Bewley's recreation of the Vincent Black Lightning. He bought a engine which had been sold by Vincent's for installation in a car, in a Cooper car. But he's reinstalled it with Mick Rocco's help on the Isle of Man in this frame and created this wonderful machine. A whole array of Vincent Club members there. Brian Werrett chatting to Roy, Jeff Priest, John Rennick's wife, John himself chatting to Bill Bewley's wife, and Bill there in discussion. The next few scenes give an indication of how the stand layout evolved from the idea that Jim and I originally had, but we were happy with the end result and we hope that the punters were too. And the scenes which follow in a short while will give you some indication of that, I think. Bill's Black Lightning replica is no museum piece. He's ridden it round the TT circuit on the VMCC closed lap parade, and it performed very well. So it's a very well maintained shiny beast, but it does a little more than that. And here are the details of the performances of Mighty Mouse and Super Mouse. Mind you, in 1948-49, the performance of a standard Vincent Rapide was 1.5 seconds to get to 30 miles an hour, and the Black Shadow had a top speed of well over 100 miles an hour, and that was when the average family car would barely achieve 60. So, you know, the Vincent was tremendous in its time and still going strong. We've not looked previously at Brian Werrett's Vincent Series A TT machine, which his recent research seems to indicate that it was written by Jack Williams, Peter Williams's dad, in the TT. And we saw Jim Middleton's Egley being wheeled in at the start of the film. That too is no stranger to the racetrack in the hands of Peter Gerrish, albeit the engine may have changed. And back again to Brian Chapman's big twin. Brian is a carpenter by trade, but my goodness, he's an instinctive engineer as well. And here again is a close-up of John Rennick's Epimetheus, which is a familiar sight on the Brighton seafront in the speed trials with Eddie Wallbanks, known as Slim Lead Ed, in the chair. John has also tried his luck on the Bonneville Salt Flats in a streamliner which he built, which is now in Italy. Fast man. And we allow George Brown's rider's eye view on Super Nero to conclude this little look at our stand, but we should be back briefly towards the end of the film. What did they used to say about the E-Type Jaguar? Looked as though it was doing 100 miles an hour when it was standing still. Rather appropriately, bearing in mind the theme of our stand this year, the stand opposite was the motorcycle sprinting stand, with some very interesting exhibits and indeed riders. The little Dougie there, number 250, is said to be the fastest Dougie in existence. And the rider, Henry Body, is one of the oldest. He's in his 70s at the time of this film. And there's his record. And we shall see him in a moment or two. And there is Henry, who does a lot of his sprinting at Weston's Island near Bridgewater and of course elsewhere. This of course is the Douglas Owners Club stand with the final version of their Dragonfly there and the early plus 80, plus 90 machines to the right, the blue machines. But in a moment we should see one which is a double engine, one engine above the other, making it a 700cc machine. Coming into view now, I think. There it is, 242 KLF. What an engineer. Now we're back on our own stand and we'll do a bit of people watching. Sometimes the people and their reactions are more interesting than the machines themselves. Both come in all shapes and sizes. So I'll just sit quietly and you can watch the folk for a moment. It's worth mentioning that the photographs on the screen there behind Jim and Bill Bewley were taken by Jeff Priest, one of our club members who's taken films of Vincent's sporting activity throughout his working life. Very keen amateur photographer, and they were splendid photographs and made a wonderful display. He's actually had a book published by the Vincent Owners Club of his work. The lady chatting there is Jane Nelms, one of the stalwarts of the Bristol section of the club. Her husband Roger was one of those hauling the bikes out of the van at the beginning of the film, risking their fingers and their toes. Although the stand is run by the Bristol section of the club, it's always well attended by people from elsewhere in the country, and some of the Dorset members are in the little groups chatting in the foreground. But over the weekend it becomes quite a meeting place, quite a focal point.
I just had this, I showed the chap over there, I've had that air.
to complement the record that I've been able to put on film, I thought it might be interesting to reprise that with some of my still images of bikes that we've seen, discussed, marvelled at, and here they all are in a rather slower procession. I hope you find that enjoyable too. Leaving the Vincent club stand behind, this is the Malmesbury club stand, which is always worth a visit. A prize-winning stand without a doubt. This is the Bonham's auction stand with the obligatory Bruff Superior. There's always one, but here's a rather different one, dated 1894, made by the Hildebrand brothers. If you've got 60 or 70,000 pounds to spare, there's a project bike for you. My goodness. Actually, I think the Norton Dominator there would be a much more attractive proposition. That one's very smart. And there's Roy Barrett, the Somerset artist, who's always here with some wonderful paintings and drawings. A final view there of Super Nero, and then perhaps testing my artistry to the limit is a photograph through the front wheel of Bill Bewley's Black Lightning replica of Mighty Mouse. And is it sister, is it brother, Super Mouse? The wonderful creations of Brian Chapman. And a final panorama of the star performers: Nero, Super Nero, John Rennick's wonderful three-wheeler, Bill Bewley and his Lightning, Jim Middleton's Egley, Brian Werrett's historic TT machine, and Mighty Mouse and Super Mouse. There we are. As we all know, time is a cruel master. And since I made this film, at least 3 of the people on the film have passed away. Jim Middleton, Billy Purnell, Gordon Hems, and there may be others that I haven't recognised. Rest in peace and happy memories.